question. Are you getting tired of superhero movies yet? Now, I'm not saying superhero movies are getting bad or anything. Far from it. If anything, they're getting better by year. But what I'm trying to ask is, are there too many of them coming out every year? Let's look at last year. We had 3 superhero movies within 6 months of each other. Hell, at some point or another, they probably were all still playing in the theater somewhere. That's insane. Now, when did this whole superhero movie craze begin? Well, some will argue it began with the 1970s Superman. However, I beg to differ. Superhero movies were rarity back then, and they got really big when the Batman hit the scene in 1989. However, during the 90s, superhero movies kind of went through this identity crisis, I guess, where they didn't know what they wanted to be. There were a whole bunch that came out, and there were a whole bunch that were flops. Presumably Batman and Robin, the biggest one. Oh my god, that movie's horrible. But however, the superhero movies that we know today truly began with 2001's Spider-Man. And my god, was that movie fantastic. It regenerated the superhero craze and made superhero movies awesome again. But when you really think about it, superhero movies still didn't really catch on for a while there. Until, that is, when The Dark Knight hit the scene in 2008. The same year Iron Man hit the scene. Once these 2 movies came out, the whole genre exploded. And then we had The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, The First Avenger, The Avengers, Iron Man 3, Thor 2, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, and now we have The Avengers coming out. Followed by Ant-Man and several other movies. And then DC now, we finally got our Man of Steel, the Superman reboot that I've been waiting for years and loved. And now we have our whole lineup of Batman vs. Superman, and all those movies are going to follow. And oh my god, how many movies are coming out? Do you see my point? I'm not saying superhero movies are getting bad. I'm not saying that. Don't mistake this as me hating on superhero movies because I think they're pieces of shit. They're not. They're fantastic movies. Guardians of the Galaxy was one of my favorite movies of last year. What I'm trying to get across is, are we starting to feel fatigue of superhero movies? Because, yeah, just because it's Marvel and it's not really superheroes, they're Guardians of the Galaxies, it's still Marvel. We associate that with superheroes, just like DC is associated with their comic book movies. Do you get my point? The last thing I want to happen to superhero movies is them go through another big crash like the late 90s, presumably with Batman and Robin and Steel, those movies bombing harder than a Tyrannosaurus turd. And there have been some stinkers along the way throughout the years. I'm not saying there hasn't. There have been. Spider-Man 3, many consider to be a horrible movie. I personally don't think it's that bad, but we'll save that for another time. And many others that just were hit and misses after another. And it was only once superhero movies found their niche in 2008 did they really pick up speed. And now they're huge hits after huge hits. And my problem is if we start feeling fatigue, won't this all just come crumbling down on itself? I mean, and that's not what I want to happen. I want superhero movies to keep doing well. But the problem is Marvel and DC need to slow the hell down on this race car track they're on for the first place here, because DC's playing major catch-up and Marvel's on a roll right now, and I'm afraid if they keep going at this speed, eventually the audiences are just going to get tired of it. Hell, the best example I can think of is, look at the video game franchise Call of Duty. For the past 3 years in a row, that franchise has been seeing a steady decline in sales after like 5 years in a row of being the best-selling game of the year. Eventually, people get sick of something if it's the same thing over and over. Now, I'm not saying superhero movies are the same every single time, but they do kind of have this structured formula that really kind of forces them to be a certain type of movie, like hero does this, might have some kind of redemption story, fights villain, we set up for a sequel, done. You get what I'm kind of saying? But then at the same time, they're still good. I'm not saying they're bad. Again, I'm trying to nail the end to everyone's head. I'm not saying superhero movies are getting bad, because they're not. If anything, they're getting better. But just because something is good doesn't mean it will make money. I want these movies to keep making money, but Marvel apparently is thinking now they're invincible. No company is invincible. That's what I'm trying to get across. So, are you getting tired of superhero movies? I kind of am, a little bit. I don't own hardly any anymore. All I own is the original Spider-Man trilogy and the Dark Knight trilogy. That's it. And Man of Steel, of course. I had to own that. But other superhero movies, no. I got rid of most of them because I got tired of a lot of them. I see them on TV everywhere. I see them in media everywhere. I see them everywhere. So why would I need to own them if I see them everywhere? So my point here is just Marvel and DC. Slow the hell down. At least Marvel. You're getting way too ahead of yourself. And the last thing I want is you to be in the middle of Phase 3 because I want you to make it to the Infinity Gauntlet. I want to see this story conclude. And I also want to see where you take Spider-Man now that he's a part of your franchise and we're finally getting rid of those abominations called The Amazing Spider-Man. Now DC, you don't need to slow down as much, but just don't try to be playing catch up with Marvel. Do what you gotta do to make your movies good, because if anything, your movies are just gonna come across as what The Amazing Spider-Man was, trying to cram so much into one movie, which I think is happening with Batman vs. Superman, which I don't want to happen, because that is a movie people have been wanting for years. And it's a chance to finally get it made, so don't fuck it up. Just slow down is what I'm saying. Give people some breathing room. You don't want to make people fatigue on superhero movies. Right now, the most successful genre in movie theaters. You don't want that to happen. Because Avengers Age of Ultron, I'm sure, is going to make more money than its predecessor. I'm sure of it. Ant-Man, I don't know, but because it's Marvel, they can sell it on that. Just like how they did Guardians of the Galaxy, and look how that turned out. So the point of this video is simply, Marvel and DC, slow the hell down with your superhero movies before the audiences get fatigued of them. Okay? Good. Hope we have an understanding with each other. I'm Derek Gould. Thank you for watching another episode of The Derek Gould Show. Comment, rate, and subscribe, and I'll see you all here next week.